Senate Concurrent Resolution 96 by Senator Pan relative to a day of remembrance.
Great. Senator Pan, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. President. Senators, I present to you Senate Concurrent Resolution 96, which declares tomorrow, February 19th, as the Day of Remembrance. On February 19th, 1942, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, sanctioning the forced removal of more than 120,000 Japanese Americans from their homes to incarceration camps. This dark chapter in American history ignored the principles of due process and equal protection set forth in our Constitution. And while this may seem to be a distant event, recent rhetoric and statements, even by some elected officials, again, on Islamophobia and anti-immigrant rhetoric, has shown that we certainly need not forget what happened in the past can happen again. And certainly I hope that all of us who reside here, who represent the people in California, would never forget this terrible event and the injustice that happened. This Day of Remembrance serves as an essential reminder of the need to protect and advocate for the rights of all Americans, so that what happened to Japanese Americans during World War II is not repeated again in our country. And certainly as leaders, it is our duty to uphold the values and ideals of our Constitution and of our country. So please join me in supporting SCR 96 as we continue to strive to provide direction that displays the best of our democracy and of our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pan. Senator Bell?
Members, I urge support of this resolution. The situation in San Jose is now that we have a community dialogue right now going on regarding some of the historical forgotten aspects of the internship. And what this is the discussion about the taking of property of people who left and were put in these camps all over the western United States. The famous San Jose playwright has just opened a performance of his new play in San Jose, and that's Luis Valdez, who wrote The Zoot Suit and other plays. He came out, Teatro Campesino. He has come out with a new play in San Jose that's now performing in San Jose. If you happen to be in San Jose, I can probably arrange that you can attend some of the performances. But the play is about, at the San Jose Stage Company, it's about the whole situation of support against racism and discrimination with the Latino community in San Jose and Japanese American community in San Jose. And I think that exploring more history, learning more about what really happened, the kinds of things that our community experiences have really yet to be discovered. There's a lot of unknown information regarding this subject and how it had a lifelong impact on not only our people in our community that were put in the internship camps, but also the other people that were left behind and helped the Japanese Americans return and recover their assets and property. It's a very sad story of our history. We should not ignore it. We should find more information and explore the issue and discuss the issue. I urge and I vote on the resolution.
Thank you, Senator Bell. Members, other comments or discussion? Senator De Leon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, colleagues. I too rise in support of the good senator from Sacramento in the Senate Concurrent Resolution number 96. I represent Little Tokyo, and adjacent to Little Tokyo is the incredible neighborhood of Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights at one time was a neighborhood that was populated by Ashkenazi Jews, a majority of them from Eastern Europe. Why? Because they weren't allowed to buy any type of property just, I believe, west of La Brea. And in fact, it was legally prohibited. They were legally prohibited from purchasing land west of La Brea. That being said, the Boyle Heights community was also home to a large Japanese American population. Many of them were actually gardeners. And with the internment camps, Executive Order 9066 by FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and we know that this is cuts across all political spectrums, that many of them were in turn lost their businesses and in fact entrusted Mexican immigrants as well as Mexican Americans to take over their businesses as well as their homes while they were in the internment camps, whether rural parts of California or elsewhere in the nation. But it's important that we have these types of Senate concurrent resolutions because it speaks to our history, which is very important. We have to understand it and we have to talk about it, whether it was the Chinese Exclusion Act, which originated here in California, in fact, originated under this dome. Then it was exported to Washington, D.C. by a U.S. senator who represented California. One of the most racist laws on the books in the United States of America, whether it was Operation Wetback, which was a federal immigration policy, but nonetheless it had disproportionate impact on Mexicans and Mexican Americans and U.S.-born citizens here in California. In this case was Senate Concurrent Resolution 9066, the executive order by FDR, splitting families apart, Americans because of the xenophobia, because of the fear of the axis of evil, obviously Germany and Nazis and in toto and in Japan, in the imperialistic army of Japan. But we as elected officials have to understand how we separate political and militaristic agendas from the people themselves and families. So with that, I want to thank the author from Sacramento for bringing this up and reminding us once again why, as Americans, this is the greatest country in the world, even with all our blemishes, that we must learn from our mistakes as we move forward to build a better democracy.
Great. Thank you, Senator De Leon. Senator Hill?
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I, too, want to thank Senator Pan for bringing this Day of Remembrance forward because, and the Pro Tem really did an outstanding job of really highlighting why we need a Day of Remembrance and the significance of this for California history and for that, the history of the United States. But I just wanted to share why the Day of Remembrance and the significance of it for me and the district that I represent is the city of San Bruno. There used to be the Tanforan racetrack was at that location in the center of San Bruno. And Tanforan was an assembly center where those Japanese Americans were assembled and stayed for many months before they were sent off to many parts of the country to be relocated and spend a couple of years before they could come home. But in order to remember that and to make sure that we don't forget, there is an effort underway now by the community, by the Japanese American community, and by the community at large to build and construct a permanent memorial at that location. It's now a shopping center, the Tanforan Shopping Center. There's a BART station, but right in between there, so we will never forget, will be a memorial to last and to remind us that we could never let this happen again in this country. So thank you, Senator, again, and I stand in support of SCR 96.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator Hill. Members, any other comments? Yes, Senator Fuller. Thank you.
I rise today to support this resolution. As for me, things always boil down to people. I'm a people person, and people make the difference in my life, and I feel strongly. I'd like to note that Manzanar, the Japanese internment camp, was in my last district, Inyo, which was redistricted out, but for the years that I represented the Manzanar camp, I found it a very instructive place for people to go. It's a very nice museum now. It's heart-wrenching. It's a gut-level experience. But when you go there, you begin to understand the great injustice that was perpetrated at this time. And so I urge all of you, if you're driving down through Bishop area, to stop. It doesn't take a long time, but to dedicate a little bit of time to show your family and the members and friends that you have with us the history that we don't want to repeat. In addition to that, I have been very lucky to know Dr. Nakanishi, who was interned in a Japanese internment camp. And if you haven't met him and talked to him about his story, I urge you to hear the story of strength, the story of integrity. And he's careful about the injustice, but that will tell you the great story of injustice when you understand his story. And I'd like to end on the one positive thing that came out of this horrible experience. And that is there are many, many stories of neighbors and friends who kept the property of these Japanese American neighbors and friends, who kept their property safe, who ran their businesses for them until they came back. Some lost everything because they didn't have friends that did it. But there were people, other Americans, who loved and thought it was a great injustice, who stood to help. And we have to remember those stories of heroics are important too, because that's the American spirit we want to foster for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. Senator Block?
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand on behalf of the Jewish Caucus and also on behalf of all of the legislators who worked several years ago to create a day in honor of Fred Korematsu, who fought so valiantly through the courts to have the courts officially recognize that internment was just wrong and is a real blot on the history of the United States. So now we celebrate Fred Korematsu Day of Constitution every year at the end of January in our public schools all around the state, where students can look at the U.S. Constitution and remember the importance of the constitutional guarantees of freedom of expression, guarantees against racism and inequalities. As the Jewish Caucus was strong in support of that resolution, I co-authored it along with Warren Fioritani. I want to commend the author of this resolution for bringing this every year to our attention. It's worth thinking about every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Block. Senator Morlock?
Thank you, Mr. President. Right after I took the CPA exam and finished college, I went backpacking out of Bridgeport. And on the way up 395, I had my first encounter with Manzanar. And that was quite a moving experience. In '95, I would be appointed to the California Sesquicentennial Foundation. And at the time, there were just three of us as board members: Don Geiger out of Stockton, Art Takahara out of Mountain View, and myself out of Costa Mesa, California. And I had the chance to get to know Art Takahara. He was on the city council of Mountain View, and as an infant, he also had to serve in an internment camp. And to get his real-life story was very moving. So it is great that the senator from San Bruno mentioned the other internment camps. The state of California has a good, robust historical landmark system for all the internment camps and the temporary camps, which were at fairgrounds up and down the state. So with that, Mr. President, I just want to announce that my son is getting married, my oldest boy, in July. His wife, or his fiance, his fiance is half Japanese. And so they're getting married in Lone Pine, real close to Manzanar. And so I'm kind of excited about the personal touch, as well as the senator from Bakersfield had mentioned. So with that, I also support SCR 96. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Morlock. Okay, Senator Jackson?
Thank you. Very briefly, on behalf of the Legislative Women's Caucus, I want to add on to the very moving, poignant, and important remarks that have been made by my colleagues here. I think it's just a reminder that we really need to focus on the content of one's character. That is really what America's all about. And as we continue to blend, as was pointed out here, bringing out the best of what makes America so extraordinary, what makes California so extraordinary, this quilt of different cultures, religions, ethnicities, ideas, hopes and aspirations, genders. It is really critical that we keep our eye on and focus on what this country means, what California means, and it means that this is a place of hope and opportunity for everyone, and that this one experience, the shameful experience, we remember going forward that we are not going to give in to fear and hatred and bigotry, that we are going to strive for and reach for hope, opportunity, love, and compassion for all our fellow human beings. With that, I urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Senator Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd just like to stand as a member of the California Legislative Black Caucus to lend our voice in support to SCR 96. Following my colleague representing the Women's Caucus, there's really nothing more to be said. I think it's critically important that we acknowledge that we are one generation away from the Second World War, and the whole concept of a day of remembrance, particularly at this time, I think is critically important as we embrace not only our history's dark past, but also our bright future, and acknowledge the fact that we will never cross those roads again. I stand in support of SCR 96.
Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Members, other comments? Senator Anderson, I'm sorry.
I just want to add to my colleague from Santa Barbara's comments. You know, despite facing internment, despite all the pressures from society to hurt those that were interned, we have members of our society like Alan Nakanishi, who after being interned went on to become a doctor, an assembly member, and a city councilman. It just speaks to how great our nation is, that we have people that can overcome all forms of racism. They can overcome all these items and still persevere to be great people. And I think that we should never move forward with internments again. But I think it speaks greater to the quality and character of the people that were interned, that they were able to overcome it. And I want to thank my colleague from Santa Barbara for bringing up that point and bringing it home. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. Members, any other comments or discussion? Senator Pan, would you like to close?
Thank you. I want to thank, again, all my colleagues for your wonderful, eloquent statements in support of this resolution. I would just say that this is, again, something that we do not see happen again. Even though we've heard many stories of people who have overcome hardship and have helped others in hardship, this is not something we wish to impose on any group of Americans. And that hopefully as we remember this day and what happened, that we will not remain silent. We will not remain silent when rhetoric is used against a group of our fellow Americans to try to, again, raise fear or lead to an event like this again, that we remember that this is a terrible injustice. For all the triumphs that people have overcome, this is terrible injustice. We will never let this happen again. And again, I want to thank everyone for your wonderful support, and I ask for an aye vote. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Senator Pan. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines.
Aye.
Aye. Galgiani. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Wesso. Aye. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Latta. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Aye. Nilsson. Aye. Pan. Aye. Papley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Wachowski. Wolk. Wolk aye. Wachowski aye.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The resolution is adopted. Members, we're now going to return to announcements. Senator McGuire?
Thank you so much, Mr. President. We have, of course, Mr. Wachowski's birthday, and we have another birthday that's coming up tomorrow. It is her 30th birthday, and that is Senator Connie Leyva, and want to wish her a very happy birthday here. She's going to be spending it with the squeeze, seeing some Rascal Flats. So if we can just wish her a happy birthday today.
Great. Happy birthday, Senator Leyva. Members, we'll return to Senate third reading items 45 through 53. Okay, we're going to pass the file on item 46. All right. File item 47. Pass on file. File item 48. Senator Nguyen? Senator Nguyen, file item 48. Pass on file. Members, file item 49, Senator Mendoza. Secretary, please read.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 105 by Senator Mendoza relative to Pakistani American Day.
Senator Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I'm here to briefly read SCR 105, which observes the Pakistani Resolution Day, which is the day that Pakistan received their constitution. We'll be doing a brief floor ceremony next month, and I just want to bring forward for a vote today. Thank you for your eye support.
Members, any objection to unanimous roll call? Seeing none, ayes 39, noes 0. Members, we'll now move to file item 50, Senator Jackson. Secretary, please read.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 106 by Senator Jackson relative to California Court Reporting and Captioning Week.
Right, Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. Each year, the National Court Reporting Association honors the profession of court reporting and captioning by designating a week in February as National Court Reporter and Captioning Week. Our state of California has about 8,500 court reporters and captioners. Court reporters and captioners are those folks who are responsible for keeping complete, accurate, secure, and unbiased records of courtroom proceedings, a critical service necessary for the administration of justice in our state and nation. And by creating a transcript of court proceedings, they help provide an effective review of cases for appeals. They're also responsible for the closed captioning on television screens, and if any of you folks are like me, we're very grateful, particularly when we're trying to figure out what it is young people are saying who speak so fast that it's hard to understand them. They provide the captioning so we can follow along, and many of us, I can say, for myself in particular, are most grateful that we can understand what's being said, because it's just very hard to keep up with the way young people talk so fast today. In addition, they do the captioning on TV screens and at sporting stadiums and in other community and educational settings, so that access to information is brought to those who are not only challenged by age, but those who are challenged by hearing loss or otherwise hard of hearing. As such, this resolution designates the week of February 14th through February 20th as the California Court Reporting and Captioning Week in recognition of the valuable work, the invaluable work that court reporters and captioners do to translate spoken word into text and to preserve history. This resolution is co-sponsored by the California Court Reporters Association and the Deposition Reporters Association of California, and I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Great. Thank you, Senator Jackson. Members, any discussion or debate? Seeing none, would you like to close? Senator Jackson.
Just ask for an aye vote.
Great, wonderful. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines.
Aye.
Aye. Galgiani. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Wesso. Aye. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leba. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Aye. Nilsson. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Yes, Secretary, please call the absent members.
Berryhill. Aye. Runner. Vidak. Aye.
Ayes 39, no 0. Resolution is adopted. Members will now move to file item 51. Senator Lara. Pass on file. Members will move to file item 52. Senator Nielsen. Pass on file. Members will move to file item 53. Senator Cannella. Pass on file. Okay. Should we just return to, yeah, okay. Members, we're now going to return to motions and resolutions. And this is our time for adjourn in memory. Senator De Leon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it is with deep sadness that I rise today to adjourn in the memory of Denny Samuel. Now, colleagues, we all know Denny as a longtime representative, government affairs representative to Chevron, based here in California in San Ramon. Denny spent 42 years with Chevron company working in California, Florida, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Puerto Rico, as well as Canada. He spent 20 years as Chevron's California lobbyist until he retired back in 2009. Now, Denny grew up in the Pacific Northwest. He attended the University of Washington, did postgraduate studies at Golden Gate University, and received his MBA down in Southern California in Malibu, to be specific, at Pepperdine University. He was a fighter pilot, which I did not know. He was a fighter pilot for the U.S. Navy during the 1960s. For those who remember Denny, I remember him very well. His wit, his good humor, his intellect and compassion made him a true friend to everyone around the Capitol. And he was a man of his word, and he was a gentleman. He had an incredible humor. When I met Denny for the very first time, if you remember him, he had that deep tan and was always a smoker, and spoke what I detected to be a little of an accent. I always had thought that Denny was European, Scandinavian, Swedish to be exact. And one day I did ask him, you know, where's your family from in Sweden? He said, that's not an accent. He said, I had a stroke a few years ago. And he had that wit and humor to actually just laugh about it. And we actually had a beer and laughed about it. But he was an incredible person. Now, before retiring from Chevron in 2009, Denny was honored by both political parties as a top business representative in California and received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the California Latino Legislative Caucus. Denny also served on the boards of many community and industry organizations, including the Sacramento Child Abuse Prevention Council, the River Oaks Center for Children, the California Latino Leadership Institute, and he was also a trusted informal advisor to St. John's program for real change for homeless mothers and children. Denny very much enjoyed retirement and spending time with his family. He is survived by his wife, Fran, whom he married back in 1976, and to whom he served coffee in bed nearly every day. Their 40th wedding anniversary passed a few days after his death. He was beloved by his 4 children, Rachel Wayland Schlosser, and his son-in-law, Ted Schlosser, sons Darren Samuel, Scott Samuel, as well as his daughter, Laura Donahue, and son-in-law, Mike Donahue. He was adored by his 7 grandchildren, Jack, Ryan, Camelia, Savannah, Colton, Zachary, and Christian. He asked that no funeral be held, and we send our thoughts, our prayers to his family as they adjust to life without their husband, without their father, without their grandfather. Colleagues, please join me in remembering one of the great figures here in Sacramento, Mr. Denny Samuel.
Thank you, Senator De Leon. Senator Fuller.
I would like to join the pro tem in honoring Denny Samuel. I rise today to celebrate our friend Denny Samuel. His intelligence and humor, if you knew him, was just a treasure. He had so many great stories about being a fighter pilot, but you had to coach him to get him to tell you. But being a pilot, I was always interested, and I will miss our time that we used to have together. As you've heard from the pro tem, he's served on many boards for homeless mothers and children. He was a great humanitarian, but one of the things he took pleasure in doing was creating Lego sets and engineering forts and watching his grandkids' favorite Star Wars and Little Mermaid movies over and over and over again with them. Because he was a great human being, both for children and for the helpless and for all those who needed him. Denny has passed away too soon, but he will be remembered for, in 2009, he was awarded the top business lobbyist in California. He will be remembered for all of his humanitarian works for those that needed him. And he will most of all be remembered by his grandchildren and his children, who will grow up in his footsteps to make America great. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. Senator Nielsen?
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, Denny Samuel will always be one of the best examples of the advocacy profession. It is often maligned, but this man could not be. Truly, Denny always led and advocated from the heart, with passion about the company for whom he worked, and he advocated with zeal, with candor, and with credibility. But as evidenced by the many other things he involved himself, this man had a big heart. When he came here, you knew that heart was behind what Denny was talking to you about. And you knew when he looked you in the eye that he was being forthright and honest with you, and you could trust his word. And therefore then, whatever your decision was, you knew that you were basing whatever he brought to your attention, that you could count on that. He was a credible man and a credit to this institution wherein he served. It's going to be missed, that example of Denny Samuel. And it's always a pleasure when I can rise to be one who served with those folks early on through the late 70s, 80s, and then got to come back a second time around, to have them still be here, still be that living example that must not be forgotten. Denny, thank you for what you've been to your state, to this legislature. May you rest in peace with the Lord. May God bring comfort to your family.
Great. Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Our thoughts and prayers go to the family of Denny Samuel. Senator Allen.
Senators, I rise to make a motion to adjourn in memory of Daniel Brenner. We had a tragedy in my district this last week. Judge Brenner, a very distinguished member of the Los Angeles County Superior Court, also former director of communications law at UCLA Law School, was crossing the street very close to his house in the Pico Robertson area and was struck and killed by a car. And it's a tremendous loss to the legal community in Los Angeles, to the legal, he taught at both USC and UCLA law schools. And I want to just read a quote from Michael Powell, who was a former FCC chairman. The people of Los Angeles have lost a great judge, and the great policy and the public policy community has lost a great friend and colleague. He was a prized teacher and mentor for hundreds of law students at UCLA, USC, and Georgetown University. None of us will ever forget Dan's keen sense of humor and perspective, which helped to guide his approach to his career and his friendships. We will sorely miss him. It's a real loss for our community, and it's another reminder of the dangers out there in terms of road safety. And we're hoping to learn as much as we can from this incident. And there are so many places of pedestrian vulnerability in our cities and elsewhere. And this is just a senseless and tragic loss for our community.
Thank you, Senator Allen, and our thoughts and prayers go to the family of Superior Court Judge Daniel Brenner. Senator Wen?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to also ask that we adjourn in memory of Stacy Lynn McGolan from Garden Grove. She was a dynamic, creative, fun-loving woman who brought tremendous joy and warmth to every life she's touched. She was an active and dedicated volunteer in the city of Garden Grove for over 30 years. As an executive director of the Miss Garden Grove Scholarship Organization and the Miss Garden Grove's Outstanding Teen Program, she mentored hundreds of young women. She was not your normal or average pageant director. The moment one pageant finished, Stacy was hard at work on the next one. She mentored every young woman, including pageant contestants, their sisters and mothers, her co-workers, her personality, her wit, her dedication to her job to the city of Garden Grove will be extremely missed. She's dedicated all her life in the city, not only working for the city, but also volunteering. Her family is very well known in the city and the community. I've known Stacy for many years, and in 2013, she also was recognized as the Woman of the Year for the city of Garden Grove. And after we leave here, I'm actually going to be heading to her, well, I won't make it to the funeral, but I will be heading to her, the celebration of her life. And it's a great loss to the city of Garden Grove, its residents, and I ask that we adjourn in her memory. And she is survived by her mom, Connie, her brothers, Raphael and Mike, her sisters, Stacy, Eileen, Deborah, and her soul sister, Jennifer Gallo. Again, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Senator Wen, and our thoughts and prayers go to Stacy's family. Members, yes, Senator Fuller.
President and members, I rise today in memory of Scott Valentine and James Chavez. California lost two heroes last week. Tulare County Sheriff's Deputy Scott Valentine and veteran military pilot James Chavez were tragically killed in a plane crash on February 10th while assisting deputies on the ground with an arrest. Both men were highly respected by their peers and committed to public service. Scott had an impressive career with the Tulare County Sheriff's Department, where he proudly wore the badge of honor to protect and serve his community for more than 26 years. During those years, he served as a patrol deputy in Porterville and Visalia areas, evidence technician at the Department Crime Lab, and bailiff at the Visalia Courthouse before joining the Sheriff's Aerial Surveillance Program. Through working together on the Aerial Surveillance Program, both Valentine and Chavez formed a close friendship and died doing what they love best, helping others. Their sacrifice reminds us of the dangers that peace officers and first responders face every day. My thoughts and prayers are with the family and all of the men and women who protect their communities.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. Senator Vidak? Is it to this item?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Members, I rise to adjourn in the memory of James Chavez, who had been a resident of Hanford, where he met his wife, Melissa. They have two children, Jaylene and Joshua. James had a passion for being a pilot and loved flying a Black Hawk for the U.S. Army. Before transferring to the Army National Guard, he was a Navy officer and served on the USS Abraham Lincoln. He was a volunteer for the Tulare Sheriff Aero Squadron for 13 years and was later sworn in as the Sheriff 1 pilot. He earned numerous medals, badges, and citations of honor. Our hearts go out to his family and friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Vidak and Senator Fuller. Our thoughts and prayers go to the family of Scott Valentine and James Chavez. Members, under motions and resolutions, Senator Leno.
Yes, Mr. President, for purpose of announcement.
Please.
Thank you. The Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review will convene in room 4203 at 10:30.
Wonderful. Thank you. Members, under motions and resolutions. Seeing none, if there's no other business, Senator De Leon, the desk is clear.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, have a safe trip back home. Have a wonderful and productive weekend. We will reconvene on Monday at 2 p.m. Monday at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Wonderful. The Senate will be in recess until 3:30, at which time the adjournment motion will be made. We will convene Monday at 2 p.m.